Okay, so Saturday nights, galactic transmissions. Wednesday nights, ascension energy updates. And of course, Monday nights, geopolitical reports. Now, the reason I like to keep it in that order is because it's all interrelated. Since this is a multidimensional warfare, we have to understand that what's unfolding on this planet is a reflection of what's been happening in other dimensions. So that's why I have to keep it in that consistency. I know that a lot of my new subscribers don't like the geopolitical reports, and they probably don't even like Trump, which is fine. They're only here for the spiritual updates and, of course, the galactic reports, and that's fine with me. And for all my Patriots subscribers, I'm sure you guys always look forward to those geopolitical alliance updates. So, yeah, I want to keep the balance. I want to keep consistency in these transmissions as they all pertain to what's happening on Earth at this time. Now, before I give you guys today's transmission, which is very urgent, actually, this is probably one of the most significant transmissions that I will be sharing with you guys today. I would like to remind you guys that my courses are up for grab. They begin on the 6th and 7th of June, which is on a Saturday or Sunday. So I offer 3 different level ascension courses. I have Ascension Basics for beginners, breaking down the transition from 3D to 5D and beyond, teaching you how to cultivate the internal awareness, how to develop the path that leads towards enlightenment. And then, of course, teaching you some techniques that will help you embody that process a little bit more effective. And then for those that are a little bit more advanced, I do have Ascension 2.0, where I teach you how to connect to the quantum field. I teach you how to activate the star tetrahedral light body so that you guys can begin aligning with whatever version of your life, hopefully the most highest potential timeline, right? And then for those that are really advanced and just want to learn how to embody the cosmic self and learning about the deep knowledge that connects us to the entire cosmos at large, I would take Ascension 3.0. So yeah, those are the 3 different level ascension courses. I love teaching them on Saturdays or Sundays because that's when most people are available to take a course. And like always, I keep them inexpensive. I don't like charging a leg and a foot for my courses. I like to keep them only at $100. I think it's a fair trade. And most importantly, my groundbreaking class, which I think a lot of my new subscribers should take in order to even understand some of these galactic reports, and that is Our Cosmic Origin. Now, that class not only incorporates information from my book, Our Cosmic Origin, but it also incorporates information from my unpublished future book, Cosmic Destiny. So that book is a disclosure of the entire cosmic infrastructure, the different types of advanced civilizations existing in higher realities, the intergalactic councils, and most importantly, cosmic history going back to 900 billion years ago during the first creation, going back to the first creation. All right. One final thing, and I would like to say disclaimer. You guys know where I'm getting to, right? I am not a doctor, but I do believe in the holistic way of eliminating the nanobots, the metals, and of course the radiation. So Folium, this is the stuff that has been working for not only myself, but a lot of the galactic Jedis, as I do read some of the testimonies that are sent to Barbary, as well as some of the testimonies that are sent to my public email. And so thank you guys so much for even willing to detox your body. And for those that are interested, of course, I always put the link in the description, and then I pin it in the comments at the end of my presentation. All right. With no further ado, let's get right into the Ascension report. So, as many of you guys know, that we are living through one of the most transformative periods in recorded history. And this explains why across the planet, millions of people are actually awakening to a deeper question about reality, right? They're beginning to question everything. Consciousness, spirituality, is on the rise. And of course, wanting to know the true purpose of human existence. And so, what many are experiencing, and what I mean by many is both those that are awakened and the unawakened, because it's happening, it is affecting consciousness collectively as well. So, what many are experiencing internally is described as the shift into higher consciousness, which is what many ancient traditions called a gradual awakening from the fear, separation, and limitation mentality into greater awareness, greater unity, and of course, spiritual understanding. So, for centuries, we know that humanity has operated primarily through survival consciousness. And, a lot of this was imposed artificially on us when we fell from consciousness after the fall and cataclysm of Atlantis. And it seems like ever since then, society has been heavily centered around competition, materialism, division, and of course, external control systems. And we all know that whether it was through the corrupt educational system or through the corrupt organized religions, that most people were taught to focus entirely on the physical world while disconnecting from the deeper spiritual dimensions of existence. And yet, beneath the surface, many ancient traditions, mystics, and even spiritual teachings have always spoken about a future period of awakening, a time when humanity would actually be remembering its higher nature and evolve into a more conscious civilization. So, Galactic Jedis, we're seeing that happening today, right? As we are now entering this new era and undergoing this transition, not only individually, but collectively. So, the shift into higher consciousness, first of all, begins internally. Okay. We must first make the changes inside ourselves before we even expect to see them externally. And so it often starts when people begin to question the structures, the belief systems that they once accepted without thought, of course. This is also when people begin to search for meaning beyond material success. They become more sensitive to energy as a result of that. Emotions, intuition enhances. And of course, the understanding that everything in life is ultimately interconnected. So, what this means is that the more people begin to snap out of their programming, right, and begin to undergo this awakening process where they begin to question the old, they begin to find themselves in this new expanded awareness of reality. At the same time, we're seeing that these old patterns, the traumas, and even emotional wounds are also coming to the surface so that we could heal it, right? So that's also part of what's happening right now as we begin to undergo the early stages of ascension. This is part of the awakening, right? We have to heal every wound. In fact, Commander Valiant Thor told me to stress to you guys that in order to go into the 5D or above, every emotional wound has to be cleared. You guys can't be holding on to traumas anymore. You guys can't be holding on to emotional baggage. Everything has to be cleared. Okay, so this process can actually feel overwhelming at times, right? Because awakening is not just about learning new information. It is about transformation from within. So as consciousness continues to expand, and it is, Commander Valiant Thor was telling me that the galactics have a clever way of measuring the increase in human consciousness on the planet. And it turns out that collectively, every second, the galactics have been measuring that 200 to 300 people per second are snapping out of the conditioning. They're snapping out of the program and beginning to question, which to me is fascinating, okay? Because that means that we're going to be hitting critical mass pretty soon at the rate that we're going. So as consciousness continues to expand, individuals will become more aware of the energetic nature of reality. And at that point, their thoughts, their emotions, and even their intentions and frequencies are no longer seen or will be seen as abstract concepts, but as powerful forces that shape human experience. And this is wonderful to understand that. And many spiritual traditions have taught us that human beings are multidimensional by nature, that even our physical bodies connect to higher aspects of consciousness that extend beyond ordinary perception. And this is what I, in essence, teach in Ascension 3.0. I teach you how to connect with the higher subtle energy vehicles and how to collapse them into the Antakarana, which is the unified field. All the chakras collapsing into the unified field. In either case, through meditation, self-awareness, and inner healing, and of course, spiritual practices, people begin reconnecting with those deeper aspects of themselves. So that is essential, right? I encourage each and every single one of you to dedicate 20 minutes of your life to the higher power, to your higher self, to God's source, central core, whatever you want to call it. Because one of the central themes of higher consciousness is the movement away from separation and towards unity. And that actually runs parallel with Christ consciousness when you really think about it, right? Because when people are still immersed in lower states of consciousness due to negative thinking, due to separation mentality, right? Humans tend to operate through division, race against race, nation against nation, religion against religion, and individuals against individuals. Now, that was also intentionally programmed into the subconscious of the collective to keep us at odds with one another while the 1% took advantage of us. Well, that is no longer going to be the case because a lot of people are waking up. As mentioned, the galactics have monitored or are measuring that every second, 200 to 300 people every second are snapping out of the hypnosis. They're snapping out of the mass mind control that they've been under. Now, it is important to also understand that higher consciousness reveals something radically different, and that is that all life is interconnected and that humanity is part of a much larger living organism, okay? And so this is the reason why for the last few thousand years, fear had become the dominant force controlling society. Well, we're no longer going to be entertaining those negative, emotions anymore, okay? As people begin to awaken every day, 200 to 300 people per second, snapping out of the mind control, right? Compassion will naturally increase, right? Because we are all interconnected via telepathy, right? We are part of every species, and they've done studies on this where it's been proven that every species is connected organically via some sort of a unified mind hive. All right, so it's when more and more people begin to awaken, it actually helps the collective. It helps the masses awaken, and this is where we're heading into what is known as critical mass. Now, as people become compassionate, right, as that continues to increase, they become less interested in conflict and more focused on personal healing and, of course, service to others. They become more focused in living a life of cooperation and a life of balance. And so which are prerequisites for the new earth, by the way. So the desire for truth grows stronger than the desire for control or power. At this point, people will begin to recognize that external systems, mirror humanity's internal state of consciousness. So we could break the matrix, right? Based on what Commander Valiant Thor is saying here, is that since external systems reflect humanity's internal state, the moment we hit critical mass, right, which is, I think, only 10%, which is going to cause an automatic shift in mass consciousness, the entire matrix collapses. That's what that means, guys. That's fascinating, right? So in order to create a peaceful world externally, all around us, we must first transform internally. Now, many spiritual perspectives throughout history have described this global transformation as a pivotal, unprecedented, unique ascension event. Okay, this has been prophesied by many ancient cultures and even preserved within the secret knowledge of the brotherhoods. And so, what ascension ultimately entails is also the elevation of consciousness while remaining physically embodied. See, again, I would like to correct you could say the falsity, right? Or the fallacy, let's just be real, that ascension is separating from the physical realm or leaving our body. That is not the case. True ascension is the integration of spirit and matter. Therefore, by integrating our spirit into the body and embodying the higher self, housing the higher energy vehicles into the physical body, then we will achieve the true meaning of ascension. At that point, we begin to spiritualize the material realm. Okay. Now, in this view, guys, ascension also represents humanity's evolving into a higher level of awareness where our intuition, our empathy, our creativity, and even our spiritual intelligence becomes more active. Now, we know about emotional intelligence, but did you guys know that the more we practice emotional intelligence, that in turn begins to activate what is known as spiritual intelligence? I know this is a concept or a term that has never been shared, but this is what was transmitted by Commander Valiant Thor. He told me that spiritual intelligence is where we want to be. At that point, we are going to be fully embodied, full recognition of who we are before we incarnated, what we were before we incarnated, and every lifetime in between. That is the significance of spiritual intelligence. Now, the human race gradually moves beyond fear-based consciousness into heart-centered awareness. And that is also important, okay? And especially now, since the earth herself is also undergoing a transformation, right? The earth is also ascending. So a lot of this has a lot to do with increased solar activity, energetic shifts, and global changes that are interpreted by those that are awakened, or those spiritual people, as catalyst that is accelerating human awakening. And even though science tries to debunk or even explain this phenomena through physical mechanisms, many spiritual people interpret them as part of a larger evolutionary cycle that is affecting consciousness on a planetary level. Now, the awakening process is not always comfortable, okay? As higher awareness energies, hidden truths within individuals and society begins to surface. Emotional wounds, corruption, manipulation, and collective imbalances become harder to ignore. Well, this explains why disclosure, the exposure of evil, is inevitable, right? That's part of the collective, you could say, emotional wounds / corruption, manipulation coming to the surface, right? From dark to light. So that validates the disclosures, the exposure of what's been happening, right? Many people currently, because of this, they feel a sense of anxiety. And I feel it too. I am in a human body, right? I'm not, you could say, free from feeling human emotion. No, guys, there's times where I feel the anxiety of the collective. I understand what's happening right now. On a mass scale, right? There's a sense of uncertainty, of course, emotional intensity. Because of what? Because the old systems and identities are beginning to dissolve. So, from a spiritual perspective, this breakdown is also part of the rebuilding process. So, before humanity can even create a new paradigm, the old structures that have been rooted in fear and separation have to be exposed first. And this is why it's important to know that this exposure of the cabal is part of the transitioning into the golden age. Okay. Everything has to come to the light eventually. And they know that. All right. So the shift into higher consciousness also changes how people relate to themselves and others. Now, instead of constantly seeking validation externally, people that are on the path of spirituality and awakening begin discovering peace internally. Think about that, all right? They reconnect with intuition, inner wisdom, and purpose. And of course, practices such as meditation, mindfulness, grounding, breath work, prayer, and conscious living, they all become tools, guys, for maintaining balance during these times of rapid transformation. Now, another important aspect of higher consciousness is personal responsibility. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Part of moving into the age of Aquarius, the millennium, the new heaven on earth, the seventh golden age of enlightenment, whatever you want to call it, is parallel to the age of accountability, right? Becoming responsible for our own actions and what we do. Okay, so it is essential that each and every single person contributes energetically to the collective world by taking responsibility for themselves. So it is important to monitor your thoughts, your actions, your emotions, and intentions, because they influence not only your personal reality, my friends, but they have an effect on the larger human experience, since every species is organically connected to a organic unimind. Okay, so this understanding encourages greater awareness of how to live our lives, how to speak, right? Stop using cursive words. There is power in what we say. So if you guys want to stay in a high vibration, don't use cursive words. Don't say bad words. Don't say the F word. Don't say the MF word. All right. There's no point because that drops your frequency. Think about that. All right. So monitor what you speak, what comes out of you, because everything has frequency. Notice how you treat others. Are you treating others as if you recognize the Christ within them, or are you treating others as if you think they are inferior? Okay, so it's very important to understand and how to be mindful in how we treat other people as well. Okay, and because again, all of this, believe it or not, affects the collective mindset of humanity. So in many ways, the shift into higher consciousness represents humanity's growing spiritual maturity. And just as individuals evolve through different stages of awareness throughout life, so do civilizations also evolve collectively. Now, humanity now has the opportunity to move from a face that was dominated by fear, conflict, and survival into one that is increasingly guided by cooperation, wisdom, and expanded consciousness. This is being offered once again, as it does so at the end of every dark age before the precipitation of the new age or a golden age. So whether you want to view this spiritually, psychologically, or even philosophically, one thing is clear, Galactic Jedis, and that is that humanity is changing. Whether we want to jump on board or not, everything is about to change dramatically, right? Around the world, people are searching for deeper meaning. They're questioning old paradigms and awakening to the possibility that human consciousness holds far greater potential than previously understood. And a lot of that had to do with, of course, the religious indoctrination of dogma, right? Making us believe that God was outside of us. So the Great Awakening is ultimately about remembrance, plain and simple. Remembering that beneath all of these divisions, every human being carries consciousness. Every human being is awareness expressing itself through physical form. And of course, every human being has the potential for transformation. So the shift into higher consciousness is also not about becoming something entirely new. No. It is about rediscovering what humanity has forgotten all along. And we derive at that through the remembrance process. And that is that within every person exists the capacity for wisdom, compassion, healing, and a profound spiritual evolution. So as more individuals awaken internally, the process first has to be done internally. The collective future of humanity begins to change. The old world that was built upon fear will, of course, fade away, right? And a new paradigm that is rooted in awareness, unity, and higher evolution will be fully intact. And perhaps even for the first time in history, humanity will begin to consciously participate in its own collective spiritual evolution. And that's what we want. Now, another significant key here is maintaining the frequency of the new Earth. I mentioned this before, and Commander Valiant Thor wanted to remind you guys again that the reason that the new Earth, fifth dimensional Earth reality and above, is held intact, right, on this other dimension is because of us, because we are generating the frequency that is maintaining the existence of the new Earth reality. So as humanity moves through this great shift in consciousness, it is important to understand that this establishment of a new heaven on earth is not an external event. It is an internal state of being. And that ties in with holding the frequency of unity consciousness, service to others, and of course, maintaining a high vibration through coherence. So it is an internal state, right? The more people become aware of that, the faster we will have a collective shift in consciousness. And it's heading there. As mentioned earlier, per the Galactics, every second, 200 to 300 people are snapping out of the programming, which is amazing, okay? Now, the new Earth, which is really the old Earth, the original Earth, as they call it, the Eden Earth, always begins within human consciousness itself. Wasn't it the Apostle Thomas who asked Jesus, well, where is the kingdom of God? And Jesus replied, the kingdom of God is within you and all around you. What he meant to say, it is a state of mind, which in turn generates the frequency, and the frequency precipitates into the reality. Think about that, right? So it is sustained through frequencies, guys. Okay? It is sustained through the emotions that we choose to exert, through the thoughts that we choose to have, and most importantly, the intentions and the way we go about our daily life. Okay? So, in this perspective, every human being is becoming a living, energetic contributor to the collective reality that humanity is building together. So, the idea of frequency has become central within modern spiritual discussions as well, because everything in existence can be understood as carrying a vibrational quality. And this has been proven over and over again through quantum mechanics. So thoughts carry frequency. Emotions carry frequency. Environments, relationships, words, music. Be very selective in the music you choose to listen to because it carries a frequency. And even collective events that influence human energy and perception. Now, we do know that low vibrational emotions like fear, anger, hatred, and division, and despair are directly associated with dense emotional, lower vibrational states, which binds us to the 3D Earth, right? We don't want to be in that frequency anymore because the splitting between the 3D and the 5D, 4D and 5D is coming very, very soon, guys. Right? Those two realities are going to go their own way. So frequencies that carry harmony within both the individual and the collective are the frequencies that are maintaining the existence of the new Earth reality. So from this perspective, maintaining the frequency of the new Earth, and you guys are all responsible for this, by the way, because you guys are all holding the reality of this new Earth reality by virtue of the frequency that you are now generating. Think about that for a second, right? You guys are the frequency keepers of the new Earth. All of you guys are. And so that's why it's important to see yourself as an integral part of this unfoldment. So the frequency of the new Earth means choosing to embody consciously the qualities of the reality that we wish to create. The new Earth is described as a state of higher coherence, a reality where humanity lives more aligned with truth, unity, and spiritual awareness, cooperation, and harmony with nature. But many believe that this reality cannot fully stabilize externally until enough individuals stabilize it internally first within themselves. And this has been confirmed by the Galactics, okay? So the Galactics don't want to intervene. They want us to meet them halfway and do the work. They are doing their work by making sure that we ascend, that we reach this level of consciousness collectively and personally, so that we could shift humanity into a new Earth reality. In other words, the outer world always mirrors the inner consciousness of humanity. And that is another proven fact. So this is why protecting your frequency, especially during these times of unprecedented transformation, is probably the most important spiritual thing that you could all do at this time. Protecting your frequency. Now, protecting your frequency does not also mean living in denial of the world's challenges or pretending that negativity does not exist. Instead, it means learning how to remain internally centered even while external chaos continues to unfold. That's what that means, protecting your frequency. It also means learning how to remain internally centered, okay, at all given, at every given second in time, despite of what happens externally. So again, it takes a great deal of mental discipline, practices on a daily basis to be able to stand firm in the odds of challenges, my friends. Now, this also means refusing. Protecting your frequency also means refusing to allow fear, manipulation, hatred, or constant emotional reactivity to dominate your inner state. So we have to refrain from that and refuse that, okay? Many believe that during times of collective transformation, there are countless distractions competing for human attention and emotional energy. We have fear-based media, right? We have division through the different religions. We have outrages and constant stimulation that can easily pull people out of coherence and back into survival consciousness. And this is why I constantly remind you guys, stay away from the fear porn. Turn off your televisions, because that is the goal of what remains of the shadow government. So to maintain the vibration of the new earth, which is in essence the original earth, Eden, we have to learn how to cultivate that inner stability. We have to do it, guys, because through that, we are materializing this new heaven on earth faster for the collective. Meditation, prayer, mindfulness, grounding practices, conscious breathing, spending time with nature, healthy relationships, and emotional healing, they're all seen as ways of strengthening that energetic coherence. And, these practices help individuals reconnect with the presence. And that is also significant and key to help individuals not only stay connected with the present moment, but develop that mindfulness state of consciousness, which is where we need to be. And by the way, that's what I teach in Ascension Basics. Not only do I teach you about that, but I teach you the tools and techniques so that you could master that, okay? Because that inner peace, guys, that inner peace is essential, okay? It'll help us to overcome anything that is being thrown at us by external turbulences. Inner peace. So it is believed, for those that have studied the esoteric knowledge, mysticism, that the heart itself, right, functions like an energetic transmitter. And then recently, through the Heart Math Institute, right, they've discovered that the heart generates a larger, more powerful electromagnetic field than the brain. So it's like a second mind. Technically, it is the first mind, if you ask me. That's my opinion, right? So emotions like gratitude on a daily basis upon waking up, exert gratitude, compassion, forgiveness, and love. They all create states of internal coherence that positively affect both your own nervous system and the surrounding energetic environment. So when people begin to embody these states consistently, which is, again, part of protecting your frequency, they contribute to stabilizing a more harmonious collective reality for all of humanity. Now, in this sense, every individual becomes a guardian of frequency. You guys have all been tasked to guard your frequency, because your frequency is what's maintaining the reality of a heaven on earth, new golden age reality. So you're all tasked with that, okay? The shift into higher consciousness requires discernment, because not everything that captures human attention supports that inner balance also. Guard your mind, guard your thoughts the way you would guard your daughter from a molester, a Megan's List person. You know what I mean? Guard your thoughts. Very important, guys. Constant exposure to fear. This is why I tell you guys, don't watch the news. Don't entertain podcasts that are all about doom and gloom. Oh, tsunamis are coming, earthquakes are coming, we're all doomed, we're all going to be chipped. These data centers. Why do you even give your attention to that? We all know that these data centers, this rollout of AI is not going to be in the new earth reality when the timelines begin to split. We all know that. Why do we put our energy into that? All right, let's just focus on keeping your frequency here, keeping that internal state, being mindful in the present moment as much as you can, okay? Because it is known that constant exposure to fear, anger, division, or even hopelessness can destabilize emotional and energetic equilibrium. And if you guys are the frequency keepers of the new earth, right? The new earth exists by virtue of your frequency that you generate. Why fall into a lower state of vibration that will negatively affect the reality of the new earth? Okay, think about that. So many spiritual teachings, they all encourage people to become mindful of what they consume mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Just as physical health depends on nutrition, higher consciousness depends on energetic nourishment. It's the same thing, guys. The concept of coherence is especially important within discussions about the new earth. Why is that? Well, coherence refers to alignment when thoughts, emotions, actions, and intentions operate harmoniously rather than in conflict. For instance, a person who is coherent radiates stability and clarity, okay? When many individuals enter that coherence together, right? I challenge you all to protect your frequency and stay in that state of coherence as much as you can, guys. So when many people enter that coherence together, they actually create a stronger collective field capable of influencing the larger social environment. And this is what they call the Maharishi effect, the 100 monkey syndrome effect. So from a spiritual perspective, humanity is currently living between two energetic realities. One rooted in fear, conflict, control, and division. And the other one, emerging reality, is rooted in awareness, unity, compassion, and expanded consciousness. The reality that people align with internally shapes the reality that they strengthen collectively. So in that regard, per Commander Valiant Thor, we, the ground crew, all of you that have volunteered to be here at this time, are accountable and responsible for the preservation and the materialization of the new earth reality. That's what that means. Now, this does not mean ignoring the suffering either, okay, or the challenges within the world. Rather, it means responding to those challenges from awareness, right? Your heart, from awareness, being centered, instead of unconscious fear or impulsive reaction. Think about that for a sec. You see, the new earth is believed to be built through conscious action, first and foremost, emotional mastery, which leads to spiritual maturity and collective awakening. That's how the new earth is built. Okay. Many who speak about ascension describe this time as a training ground for consciousness itself. Why is that? Well, because we're learning how to hold higher states of awareness consistently despite uncertainty and transformation. And in this process, protecting your frequency becomes an act of spiritual responsibility. Not only for you personally, not only for your own personal well-being, but for the collective future humanity that is helping to create. So as individuals maintain that inner balance, we will become the stabilizing forces for others around us. Calmness influences chaos. Compassion softens fear. Presence interrupts division. And so that one coherent individual can profoundly affect an entire environment simply through the energy that they carry. And so the new earth in this perspective is not waiting somewhere in the distant future either. It is beginning every moment that humanity chooses higher awareness over fear, unity over division, and love over hatred. It emerges gradually through the consciousness that humanity embodies together. So by protecting your frequency, you actually maintain alignment with the reality that you wish to experience. By remaining coherent within yourselves, you help anchor coherence into the collective field. And through millions of individuals awakening and embodying higher consciousness, well, then humanity slowly stabilizes the energetic foundation for a new era of evolution, harmony, and spiritual awakening on Earth. All right, so the recent transmissions from the Galactic Alliance have described that humanity is entering an accelerated phase of collective awakening and planetary transformation. The Galactic Alliance and the Jupiter Command consistently focus on consciousness expansion, emotional purification, energetic recalibration, and preparation for a transition into a more unified and spiritually aware civilization. And as backed and supported by all secret teachings, the secret knowledge, Earth is currently passing through that intense energetic cycle in which the old systems that have been rooted in fear, division, and control are becoming increasingly unstable, guys. So the Galactic Alliance describes this period as a collective purification, a dismantling of outdated structures, both within humanity and within global institutions. The central message is this, guys, that humanity is being pushed towards this higher level of consciousness, requiring you to confront unresolved emotional patterns. Everyone has to do that, not just you guys, but all of humans do. Okay? We have to confront all our unresolved emotional patterns, all of our fear-based thinking. We have to hit it head on, all right, and release it. Why fear? There is no point to fear, right? Once you are connected and centered and living in coherence with God consciousness, you have nothing to fear. At that point, fear doesn't even exist, okay? And not to mention, we have to let go of our attachments to the old paradigms as well. One of the strongest messages coming in right now at this time, guys, is the importance of maintaining that inner coherence during the times of external instability. And I keep stressing on that because that is the meat of the message coming directly from Commander Valiant Thor to the Galactic Jedis. Right? Because things externally will appear to become a little bit more chaotic than they have been, but that's just because that old system is collapsing. Okay. So we have to maintain that inner coherence during these times of massive external instability. Because why? Because we are keepers by virtue of our frequency. We are maintaining the new earth reality. So all of these messages, they all emphasize that the future that humanity experiences is closely tied to the frequencies that people collectively embody. So therefore, guys, the new earth is not presented as a physical relocation either, but rather as a shift in collective consciousness. You see, the new earth has never left us. It's been concealed through layers of illusion by the old matrix, which is coming to an end in 2028, give or take. All right. And I believe that even other channelers, they all agree that by 2030, we will already be in this new earth reality by 2030, which is just around the corner. Okay. So we have to understand that we are not physically being relocated either, that this Garden of Eden, this paradise earth, heaven on earth, is existing in the same space and time, but in a different reality, in a different dimension. All right. We just don't see it. It is all around us. We just don't see it. I had to fix my chair here. So what this means is that ultimately humanity is learning to live in greater harmony with itself, the planet, and eventually the broader cosmic community, because this is where it's all heading anyway, right? Our restoration back into becoming a sovereign species, a sovereign planet connected to sovereign advanced star nation civilizations. So Commander Valiant Thor describes this transformation as an internal process first, right? Remember, that's the key word here. If you guys can't recall everything I've mentioned so far in the last hour, just the one thing I want you to remember is that internal process, right? In order to help change the external environment, we have to what? First, change the internal process, right? We have to first undergo that transformation internally, in other words. So please remember that even Commander Valiant Thor is asking us that we have to remember that this transformation first has to be an internal process before the collective could begin to stabilize into these higher levels of reality, which is what we call a new heaven on earth. And this new heaven on earth, it's already here, okay? But in order for it to be manifested on a collective level, we have to reach critical mass, right? So that the external reality of this new heaven on earth could reflect the collective internal process, the collective internal state of being, in other words. So the latest transmission coming from Valiant Thor is asking us to focus heavily on energetic sensitivity and physical symptoms also that are associated with the awakening and activation of our higher dormant abilities. It is believed that right now, due to this mutation that is taking place, right, on a cellular level of reality, we are experiencing waves of emotional intensity. Some of us are having these wild, vivid dreams. Some of us are fatigued, heightened intuition, nervous system sensitivity, heart palpitations, sleep disturbances, and even periods of deep introspection. These are all signs of these energetic recalibrations that are happening right now. So these experiences are interpreted spiritually as humanity adapting to higher frequencies of consciousness. Commander Valiant Thor frequently emphasizes the role of the heart center, being in the heart during this transition. Why is that? Well, because the heart is described as the bridge between physical awareness and higher consciousness. And Commander Valiant Thor also said that humanity's evolution depends less on technological advancement and more on emotional and spiritual maturity. Okay, we're not repeating the same mistakes of the past. We're not. Okay, forgiveness, compassion, emotional healing, and unity, they're all portrayed as essential frequencies for the precipitation of a new earth collective, heaven on earth reality. Plain and simple, guys. So the last message per Commander Valiant Thor is the concept of choice. Humanity is described as standing between two energetic pathways, one rooted in fear, separation, conflict, and control, and the other rooted in what? Awareness, cooperation, and spiritual awakening. So in this context, it is important to know that every thought, emotion, and action contributes energetically to the timeline humanity collectively begins to materialize and strengthens. And so all of this, it all stresses on the importance of protecting your own personal frequency, because it all starts with you guys, right? Valiant Thor advises limiting. He advises that we all limit our constant exposure to fear-based media. He told me to tell you guys to turn off the news. Don't even watch the news. Don't engage in, podcasts that are constantly, I guess, teaching doom and gloom, right? Practices such as meditation, grounding, consciousness breathing. I mentioned that. That is what we all should be doing at this time. Spending time with nature. Okay. All of this is crucial, guys, for the materialization and experience of this new heaven on earth reality that we all want to be in. Okay. So the idea also of disclosure, which has been described taking place in 2026. And I don't know if you guys saw 2 days ago, Trump released on his Truth Social a video. I know it's deep fake, but it's just the fact that he released it on Truth Social, a video of him walking with military personnel and what appeared to be a 7-8 foot tall alien. Okay. Well, he's letting us know, he's preparing the collective for, again, the more releases that are coming, more disclosures. Okay. So they're doing it every 3 to 4 weeks. They're going to be declassifying more classified information to the general public. And so it's important to understand that disclosure in this case is not just about releasing the footage, all of the classified information regarding UFOs, non-terrestrials, but it's also about revealing the hidden truths that have been kept from humanity for thousands of years. I've been talking about this before, right? The true meaning of the word apocalypse. So therefore, disclosure in this context is portrayed as the unveiling of this deeper spiritual awareness and the eventual collapsing of the illusion that has kept us disconnected from our higher potential. So at the center of this message today, guys, right, is that we have to experience this transformation without the fear, okay? We have to preserve the frequency by staying in our heart and being centered and not exerting negative fears, which drops our frequencies, right? And not, exposing our mind to negative things, okay? And much more. Although many are experiencing instability, emotional intensity, and societal upheaval, it is important to understand that ultimately these events are symptoms of a larger evolutionary process that is unfolding now. So humanity is portrayed as moving through a period of purification where these old systems, identities, and fears are dissolving so that a more conscious civilization can emerge. And so ultimately, guys, to finalize this presentation, the core message remains consistent. Humanity is being encouraged to awaken internally, stabilizing the higher emotional frequencies and participate consciously in the creation of a more compassionate and unified future. I do want to welcome all 2,800 people that are in the house. Thank you guys so much for being here. I do appreciate all of you guys. Thank you for showing up 3 times a week with me. Sometimes I wonder if I'm going live too many times. I think, should I just go live once a week? Should I only go live twice a week? I don't know. Leave it in the comments. If you guys think that I'm going live too many times a week, just let me know. But it seems like there's always information that I want to share with you guys. I do want to welcome everyone, all 2,000. I forget. I have 2,800 people, almost 3,000 people in the house. That's awesome. I do want to give some shout outs, but I need to put on my glasses first because I can't see these little names. Let's see who is here. Larry Hansen is here. David Leventhal is here. Somebody wants me to go live 5 times a week. No, I can't do that. Like I mentioned before, it takes me 6 to 8 hours to put together these presentations based on the transmissions. And then, of course, for the geopolitical information, I have to, it's a coupling of both transmissions and, of course, research. So you guys have to understand, it takes me hours to put together what I explain in just 1 hour, okay? It takes me 6 to 8 hours. Sometimes I am working all day just to give you guys the presentation in 1 hour. So I put a lot of energy into these presentations. So no, I don't think I could go live 5 times a week. I think I would need more hours in the day for that. All right, and more days of the week. But 3 times a week is balanced for me at this point. Who else is here? April, thank you so much for being here. April Malahau, I think that's her last name. I'm trying to shout out to new people that I've never shout out before. John P666 is in the house. Golden Hawk 100 is in the house. Penny Wilson is in the house. Margaret is in the house. Guruk 503 is in the house. These are all new people I don't recall giving shout outs to, but let's see. I want to give Wolfman a shout out. What's up, Wolfman? I hope you're still pumping that iron. Let's see. Who else is in the house? MJF. Tame Clausen is in the house. And last but not least, Wolfman says 100%. Awesome. And last but not least, Jay Jones. Jay Jones is in the house. Great. That is awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. All right. So I will be taking some questions at this time. I hope you guys type your questions in capital letters. I do want to thank Suzanne K for her donation. Thank you so much. All right, questions in capital letters, Galactic Jedi, so that I could bypass the chat. Thank you so much for the super chat. Holy ship with an SHIP. Holy ship. Anak Nisler, thank you so much for your super chat. A seer told me that my daughter's coach at her school, the coach's mom and dad are all reptiles. I wouldn't doubt that. Can you let Commander Valiant Thor know this? Because they are siphoning the energy of the children and parishioners. Oh, how horrible. Can't believe they're doing that. But again, in this day and age, a lot of this stuff's been going on for centuries, guys, in these so-called religious institutions. So, and of course, educational systems. Definitely, I will bring this to the attention of Commander Valiant Thor. Thank you for sharing that with me, brother. Joyful Ishmael, you said already we reached collective consciousness last year. What is going on? Ascension is way overdue, according to your past videos. Well, again, you guys have to understand that this collective consciousness, due to the fact that more souls are coming in, right? More souls are coming in, new souls are leaving. Honestly, guys, I'm just the messenger. So I don't know what to say about that, but that was the message for today, sister. I was aware that last year we were reaching or close to reaching critical mass, but again, the Verdance, I don't know if you remember my live about 2 weeks ago, the Verdance, which is a type of specimen comprised of reptilian, AI, and human, of course, entered our universe through a temporal displacement technology where they came from a collapsed universe that failed approximately 400 billion years ago, and they jumped into our universe right around the time of 2022, I believe. And they are the reason why disclosure, solar flash, mass ascension has been derailed. But we don't need to worry about it because, we're still on that positive timeline trajectory. Jackie, thank you so much for your super chat. No question, though. Angelina, or Angeline Ingis. It's hard to see where your first name ends and your last name begins, because on this chat, your first name and your last name are all connected. There's no space in between. So I guess, your name is Angelina, and I would assume that your last name is Iniquis. Welcome. How do we heal our traumas? Does finding peace that you teach in your classes help that trauma? Yes. That's one of the things that I teach you guys in Ascension 2.0. It's a very simple technique that will heal your traumas. And then your second question is, what are your thoughts on ayahuasca to help heal traumas? I've never tried ayahuasca. I've never even tried plant medicine. But I do hear from other people that in a controlled ceremonial environment that they have achieved clearing their trauma through medicinal, practices, mushrooms and stuff. But I've never experienced that. I'm just being honest with you guys. But, we're all different. So whatever works for you, as long as you clear that wound, as long as you heal that emotional wound, that is part of the message of today, to clear that wound. So you guys want me to keep my shows 3 times a week? All right. Not once a week, right? 3 times a week. All right. Well, then I'll just continue doing this. Thank you so much. Moved Tomati Z for the super chat. Yes. Stephanie says, unless you need rest. Well, if I do need to take a day off, I will let you guys know. Every now and then I will take a day off. Now, I'm probably going to be taking off Saturday, June 20th. You know how I go live on Saturday night. And the reason being is because I'm going to be speaking over at the MUFON Center in Tucson, Arizona. I'm going to be their guest speaker. So I'm going to be doing that on the 20th of June. And quick reminder, guys, I don't know if you guys have seen my latest presentation that I gave at Rise of the Guardians conference 2 weekends ago. I uploaded that presentation on my channel for free last Friday, and there's only 21,000 views. So half of you haven't seen that yet, right? Make sure you guys watch that presentation. It is mind-blowing. Oh, you guys are so welcome. Thank you for teaching us. It is my honor to serve at this time. All right, so her name is Katamarans. Katamarans, thanks so much for the super chat. Hi, why won't the Alliance disclose some big name arrests and convictions? It will help us sway and awaken more fence sitters to the light, but when they suppress it, the fence sitters don't see the light. I agree with you, sister. And this is one of the issues that I've been, in a way, kind of been asking the Galactics themselves. But one of the things that they told me is that the Galactics can't do it for us, right? We have to do it for ourselves. They're waiting for what is known as mass awakening. They're waiting for this critical mass event where once they see that enough humans have done the internal work, then of course they will have to disclose. But as mentioned before, they did put a deadline on the releasing of classified information, not just here in the US, but all over the world, right? Every country that has a covert aerospace program that has been working with aliens, that has reverse engineered technology, they all have to come clean before November, the end of November, right? So from what I hear is that Trump is preparing a major speech that is going to be given sometime in June, I believe, or even July. Perhaps that's going to be, declaring our second independence, right? The release of how we're not alone in the universe on a scale that has never been heard of before. So Trump is getting ready for this big speech. Yes, that's right. Humans aren't babies. We shouldn't be like, save us, aliens. We have to meet them halfway. That is so true. Yeah, because this is just going to be given way to the external savior reality. We don't want that, guys, right? Humans have to undergo the sovereign integral process, right? Not enough humans have undergone that. So sometimes we have to just be patient until enough humans have undergone the sovereign integral process of becoming a sovereign unto themselves. Okay? And so that's what the Galactics have been waiting for. And we're almost there. If they